So welcome to the next episode of Breakfast with Bacon. I'm Doug Bacon, Managing Director of Throwing Words. And with me today is the awesome TyAnn Osborn. And we are going to have a great conversation today. Ty actually has some questions of me. And so I get to be the interviewee, which I'm looking forward to. You know, we started this podcast as a way to kind of share what we were learning. And so kind of excited to see what questions Ty has. It'll be new to me too. So Ty, why don't you take it away?
All right, Doug. Well, I have been prepping for this all week. Are you excited?
Can't wait.
Are you scared?
Frightened.
Well, part of the reason I'm super excited, is, obviously we've been friends for a while, so I think this is super fun. But you have a unique set of strengths. I mean, all of us do, but you have really a unique set in particular in that you have one of the strongest set of relationship themes that I have seen in a top 10. So I'm going to tell our crew here that really 6 out of your top 10 are relationship themes, but like 6 out of your 7 top are relationship themes, and 8 out of your top 10 are present themes as opposed to future or past. So can you just give us a snapshot of your top 10 or your top 5 or even your favorites out of that top bucket?
Yeah, so the relationship strength, so it's harmony, positivity, empathy, developer, relator, connectedness. All those are, in my top 7. And then you sprinkle in a little arranger, which is technically executing, so that task orientation. But given how strong I am in relationships, oftentimes that arranger is really about how do I arrange people. So but I actually am able to leverage that as an executing theme as well. And then I also have responsibility. And again, responsibility to people in a lot of ways. And then I've got input, which is the critical thinking, strategic thinking strength. And so that kind of curator of information, I want to collect information and then be a resource for that, for others on what I'm learning and what I've learned or collected. And then self-assurance is kind of rounds out my top 10 from an influencing standpoint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you do have representation there in all the domains. It's interesting you bring up self-assurance. That's one of the least frequently seen themes, typically under 5%. Sorry, Delta Dawn is joining our podcast. So I love seeing self-assurance in there. It is interesting with so much relationship that you do have 2 of those executing themes coming in there, because one could say you're all about people. So it's good that you can get some things done too. And
one of the things that's interesting about so my thinking on those executing strengths has really evolved over time. My initial reaction, kind of knowing the strengths, is that as I share with others, I'm not burdened by the need to actually do anything right now. So I don't, because for a long time I just kind of took that arranger and that responsibility and just kind of picked them up and turned them to the color blue, so they were really relationship building strengths. But as I've kind of paid attention, I realized that I really do. That is how I get things done. I make a commitment to someone. Jay-Z and I've talked about this. When I have an appointment on the calendar with someone, I will get whatever needs to be done. Now, it may be come in, tires squealing, just in time delivery to get it to them, but I will get it done for that, because of that person, because I have that meeting on the calendar. And then with the arranger, I do think about it and can see, like in my practice, how that really helps me to, when I take the time to map out, so what is my coaching process? So what is the system I follow? Because it's all intuitive for me, but I really can leverage that arranger to say, okay, so how do all these pieces fit together?
Right.
It's been an interesting, kind of, I was telling myself one story for a long time about my lack of ability to get things accomplished, but realized as I paid attention, actually that really is there for me. I should believe it.
No, I've seen how you do that. It's interesting that when you've got other people that are in the equation, you absolutely can show up and you do show up. When did you start noticing, or when you think back, can you really see early instances of these strong relationship themes showing up for you?
Um, so when I was 5 or 6 years old, this is a great story my mom loves to tell. Um,
That's great since she's one of our viewers.
yes, she is our
One of the
viewer. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Doug's mom.
Yes. And the babysitter from when I was younger too.
Right.
Um, I got dressed up in my Sunday suit and I sat on the curb in front of our house and I waved at every car that went by.
That's so cute. Why did you do that?
I mean, again, just so wired for people, the relational aspect,
Oh,
and so we just kind of wave at people. You know, my best friend I've known since we were 3, and I'm pushing 50. Um, I was with a group of friends last night, one of whom I've known for 40 years, the other I've known for probably 35. I met my wife in junior high school. You
wow.
know, so it's all people in that the depth of the relationships that are there. And one of the cool things about relationships, because we talk about these 4 leadership domains, and it's tempting to say if you don't have something, if you're looking at top 5, you don't have anything in the influencing or so, or execute, or whatever the category, what domain is. You think about, oh, I can't do this, or I
Right.
can't influence. But it's a different question to ask. We call the company Throwing Words for a reason, because words matter. And so asking that question, instead of saying I can't do something, changing that into a question of how do I do something? And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, when I think of, I've got self-assurance, and so it's like, but I have all these the relational strengths, which are really needy and have, but it's like, so how do I influence from a relationship, from kind of operating in that relationship space?
Right.
Um, and it is because of the depth of those relationships, um, and how with relationships, it's how others, it's the impact of that those strengths have on others, and how that can draw people in to you. And we talk about, like, with relators, people tell you their life, strangers tell you their life story, kind of thing, because they're just drawn to that, just kind of that thing, that essence of the relationship piece.
Right.
There.
Well, I love that because one of the things I've noticed about you, and I mean, almost in every conversation where we're talking about your work, you mention, um, I went to college with this guy. I've known this person for a long time. This
Yeah.
person's a client of mine because they're a friend of mine. That's often in the language that you use. So I don't even know if you're conscious of it, but that's how you describe a lot of your clients. So how are you building relationships with new clients? If we often talk about relators have this depth of relationship that goes a long way, but sometimes we talk about relators having, because they're so deep, sometimes it can be a little bit more challenging for them to make new relationships. So how do you deal with that? How do you build those new things, especially as a business owner, looking and building new business?
Yeah, and it's a great question, because and it's something that's really top of mind for me, of grow, so the business has grown because I would do good work, and then someone else would find out. And so
Right.
it was always the referral, the reference, and it was, because, again, how I think about, how I see the world, I see individuals. And so, it's like, all right, so how do I get a new client to, another client? And with not having, having lesser talents in the strategic thinking, it's not like I have a 25-year vision. Like, for things to be real for me, they've got to be like 12 months or closer. And so and so if I have, thinking about longer term goals, I've got those, but I have to break them down into what do we do this year? And then, and kind of build out from there versus backing in from this grand vision. And so figuring out like, how do you scale how does this business scale? How do you apply just kind of generally known marketing practices so that people can raise their hand versus me reaching out to do that? And so what I do is I lean on people, right? So we had a conversation earlier this week with a firm that, that is, kind of a marketing communications firm who could help out, to talk about how they could help with that. So it's really kind of leaning into those relationships and knowing, because I know them and know their kind of talent, I can kind of grab what I think is the right resource for me, who can help with whatever it is I need to get done. But it's, I think it's really getting someone else's help, and then kind of relying on those relational talents to just trust that they've got this, and that they have the right plan. And that's where, like, I need somebody to somebody to vet some of this stuff for me, because two things about me. One is that I will say yes before the question is finished being asked. And then the other is that I assume I start with trust. And so, for me, when I meet somebody or I'm working with somebody, that it's 100% trust until proven otherwise.
Okay.
Versus others that can be, you start at zero and you earn up from there.
Right.
It's interesting that, like, as a coach, that's the kind of the coach mentality is, you've got all this until we know you don't. But it's like comparing coaching to kind of the selection hiring process. With coaching, I started 100 until we know there's somewhere we got a gap to close. But in hiring, you need to start at zero and have them show that they checking the boxes you need.
Yeah.
And when you do that, when I do that, it's great. I end up with people like Jay-Z, who's awesome, as we know. But with Jay-Z, and someday we'll put her on the podcast and have her talk about the interview process. But I took a very disciplined, structured process and forced myself to follow that process versus doing what I want to do, which is winging it, right, and going in and having a great conversation. But having people so I could compare different candidates, and actually back to having somebody to vet. I hired a recruiting firm to screen candidates to deliver to me. So it kind of protected me from myself in that way too, to kind of vet those candidates.
I love it. I think that's a really interesting point that you've made, and I was going to ask about kind of complementary skills to you, but let's take it in that direction, because a lot of the hiring managers that we work with, I think, overestimate their ability to hire. And I would say through no ill intent,
Right.
but it's a skill like any others, and typically not a skill that they get much practice in or much training in. And when we don't get a lot of practice in a skill, we just tend to not be very good at it. And then we tend to hire in our own image, even very unintentionally, right?
Yeah.
So it does tend to be, oh, well, I like me, and so I'll tend to find somebody else like me. And then we hire these people and we're like, oh, well, I don't need another me, right? So you've done a lot of work in this space.
Yeah. So I think about you. So high influence, because one of the things that that I see where a mistake made is that having your high influence folks do the interviewing, because they can't help but want to influence you, sell you on. And so they end up just kind of selling the candidate on the job, on the position. Like, oh my God, he's great, right? I mean, we had this great conversation, and he was selling them on it, or she was selling them on it.
And they've talked for 95% of the time.
Yes. It's interesting because, I mean, to your point, there is the data and research that shows what is the best process, from a hiring standpoint, from what does top talent look like? And so how do you, and ways that you can screen for that. And that when you have that disciplined process,
Yeah.
and stick to it. It's that process that allows the kind of just the golden nuggets to show up in terms of who, because that happened in my hiring process where when I hired Jay-Z, there were two candidates that I was considering, and because I stuck to the same process, I saw the 10% difference of where Jay-Z really brought something the other candidate didn't, and how Jay-Z's skills and personality and just kind of perspective showed up in that interview. And because I was structured and I could see, well, Jay-Z's going to be great here, this person would not, and that is what has made all the difference in terms of just how well we work together, and kind of but knowing asking the right questions and having that structure has been really helpful.
I think that is so critical. And I would say for our leaders out there, if they struggle with this, I would absolutely encourage them to reach out to you because you're so gifted in this. But this is really where I would encourage our leaders to think about, what is it that only you can do? And what is your superpower? And for you, because you are so gifted relationally, that is where you should lean in. And that is what clients are paying for when they get you. And so in order to keep you in that awesome zone, then what are the things that someone else should do, as opposed to, or for me, to keep me in that high influence zone, what are the things that I need someone else to do? So in my case, I need a high executor. I need someone to take my big ideas and operationalize them. And so if I had two of me, that would be fun for about 5 minutes. We would be great at a party together and zero would get done. I want to ask too about the thing that we talk about, which it's always great to talk about your strengths when things are going well, right? Like that seems to be something pretty intuitive to understand. But let's talk about your strengths quickly when things are not going well. Or do you ever have a strength that you find potentially gets you into trouble, or one that you might have to say like, down boy?
Yeah. So it's kind of situational, right? So,
Yeah.
So I think I'm in the business. So, when I'm making decisions and doing things kind of in the business in terms of working with clients, like strength, like I can just kind of trust instincts. And I know I've learned over time where, but who the people I'm working with and kind of what they need that I don't normally do, but that I can deal with that. And so that's kind of providing structure oftentimes in terms of, giving agendas and times and all that. Is where they find, apparently people think that's helpful to kind of know what a 3-hour session will look like.
Can't imagine, but I've heard.
Yeah. But when I'm thinking about thinking on the business, and so where I need to be making decisions that are going to be for my own best interest, and kind of having my own vision, that's the challenge, because I'm at my best when I'm clear about that vision and I'm engaging others to further that, to kind of make that vision a reality. Mm-hmm. But what can happen with my relational strengths is that I can let my vision either turn into their vision, mm-hmm. or just not happen at all, because I can sense what they are, so it's that harmony getting out of balance, because I'm saying we should do this. I want to do this. And they're like, well, but you actually probably should be doing that. And I'll be like, okay. All right. And so that's that, the relation, but particularly that, the harmony that, I'm the first one for a difference to feel like conflict. And so, and want to kind of then step back and, so that to kind of reduce that tension. And so when it's to the detriment of something I'm working on, that's where I have to really pay attention to that.
Okay. Well, and kind of keeping an eye on the time here. So I think the key things that we've chatted about today are really understanding your superpowers. And when you have a depth that you have, that it's not saying you can't do the other themes. It's saying just looking at your themes and saying, okay, how do I accomplish those things through my strengths? Not that I can't do those other things. I still execute, I still influence, I still strategically think. I just get there through my powers that may look a little different than how you get there. And then thinking about, especially when hiring, given my powers, what do I need as complementary strengths? And then how do I source for those objectively rather than letting my, whatever kind of take over a hiring process?
Mm-hmm.
Really
Yep.
seeing that. Yeah. And then also knowing, okay, these are things that I know about myself. So how do I not let maybe conflict get in the way of a goal? Or how do I not let, if I have an opinion, how do I not let sort of the will of the crowd, keep that from coming up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and just that idea of complementary partnerships as well, just kind of in terms of who can help me protect me from myself
I
in
think
that way.
Jay-Z is really good at that.
Her name is Julie Zillow. Yes.
Okay, well, I have something new that I wanted to try out for the podcast. Are you game for something new?
Of course.
Okay.
I'm
Um,
frightened, but
you're,
yes.
you're totally good. Little lightning round questions.
Okay.
Okay. Favorite food?
Oh, great question. Pizza.
Okay. What kind of pizza?
If there's a pizza at this Bricks that's which is a restaurant, so it's has sausage, pepperoni, I had banana peppers and mushrooms.
Banana peppers. Okay, very specific. Favorite band or musical group or genre?
So, early in my career, worked for the Blues Foundation, so kind of an affinity for kind of blues and R&B and
Okay,
that genre.
got you. Do you wear shoes when you work from home?
If I wear anything in flip flops, but right now I'm barefoot.
Do you have a tattoo?
I do not.
Did you have a childhood nickname?
Yeah. So, there's Dougie Fresh and Get Fresh crew was big in the 80s. And so
Dougie
Dougie Fresh was
Fresh.
that. And then I had a roommate in college who was, I got a nickname spun off from that, which was Doug the Rug.
Dougie Fresh and Doug the Rug,
Yeah.
that's going to come back. And then last but not least, if you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
That's a good question. It would be something around, it would have to be something about that I'm leaning into my harmony, but just kind of that ability to just have people get along, and so like what comes up immediately as you ask about that is just thinking about the current state of politics in our country.
Oh
Uh,
my God. Could
if
we
I had a
use some Captain
superpower,
Harmony right now?
it would be able to kind of help folks focus on where they need to be focusing in terms of where we need to be going versus it's just the acrimony and that.
Okay, I'm picturing you in your super outfit with your little cape and a big H on it for Captain Harmony, and I would like to bring you up right now and have you solve a few problems.
You have me fly into wherever. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
This
Ty,
is
this has
fun.
been interesting to be on the receiving end, but thank you for, excited to kind of have the two of us kind of continue to
Yeah,
have these conversations and bring in other guests and kind of continue to learn from each other and kind of be able to share that as well. And so
absolutely.
I think with that, we'll call this one a wrap, and thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time.
All right, bye.